Hello, YouTube. Um, Today I thought I would do something, I guess you could say slightly different than what I normally do because I usually don't. Um, I actually have yet to review something like this. However, due to the enormous success of my Hulk review, which has currently reached like 80 80 something views only literally only in like 2 days, which just I'm completely blown away by. I can't believe it's doing so well. But because of that, I thought I would review something that I grew up with. I thought I would review something that I hold very, very close to my heart and very, very, um, just something that I have loved since I was a kid. And that is the first season of the Incredible Hulk TV show. The one now this ran from 78 until 82, and it of course starred, Bill Bixby as David Banner, and Lou Ferrigno as of course, as we all know, as the original Hulk. Um, and like I said before, this is something that I have loved, um, since I was a kid. Um, I grew up watching, like all the classic reruns on TV. Um, whenever it was on TV, or, whenever they had a marathon, um, going on TV, I would always watch it because I loved it so much. And I still do. I mean, it's just, even though it's, um, even though it is, fairly dated, by today's standards. Um, and obviously due to, like the campiness and stuff like that of the 70s. It's just something that it's just I it's I it's a classic show. Um it's something that um that I think a lot of comic book fans, um that I think a fair amount of comic book fans, grew up with and watched. I know my dad watched it when he was a kid. He loved it. Um, and yeah, just, very, very fond memories um, of watching this as a kid and just loving it. Um, but anyway, yeah. Um, so the first season, mainly I'm going to be talking about the pilot episode because that's where it all started, right? Um, so the pilot, well, actually, it's a pilot movie. This was a made for TV. The pilot movie was a made for TV movie. Um, and in this, um, first off, let me say, the show doesn't really have anything to do with the comic book, um, other than um, other than the obvious fact, other than the obvious fact that you have, other than other than you know, other than you have, the Hulk. Um, but yeah, no, um, this is very much, like its own, like its own thing. It wasn't based on, any, like it wasn't based on any, existing storyline from any of the comic books or anything like that. It was just, its own thing. Um, so the um, so in this show, in the first, in the pilot movie, um, the movie opens with um, David Banner and his wife. We are seeing memories of David Banner with his wife, um, and just, and um, they're showing us, basically, like how happy they were together and their life together, and just, very, very fond memories of, um, of them together in their life that they had, um, and just, how much, they were very much in love, um, so you get you know, they give you a pretty good idea, um, like how, like what their relationship was like. It was very loving. Um, it was very loving. It was very warm. And then, um, and then David Banner, um, and then it turns out that David Banner is having a nightmare, um, and um, it turns out that his wife died in a car accident, and David was basically unable. David was basically unable to save her. Um, so David wakes up, um, and then at that point, David wakes up. Um, da- um, David wakes up, and he wakes up, um, and he is getting ready, and he's getting ready for work, and he's driving to work, and um, it turns out that it's been almost a year, since she passed, and um, and then we find out that, um, when he gets to work, I don't remember the place that he works at the moment. I apologize. Um, but it turns out that um, he and his friend, Elena, um, are working on that. They are working on a project. Um, they're basically trying to figure out how strong the human body can be. So um, they are interviewing, various people who um, they're interviewing various people who, under extreme stress and circumstances, were able to save um, their loved ones, and or people in need, and or that person in need, in extraordinary situations. So like you have a mother and a son, um, who basically got into pretty much the same accident that David and his wife did, and somehow she was able, um, the much like David, much like um, David's car and what happened with his wife, this woman, this woman's car, um, was so when the car crashed, it rolled and it rolled, it rolled and it rolled, and then it eventually tipped over, um, and it eventually tipped over, um, and the um, her son is stuck, in the passenger seat, the same seat, that David's wife was stuck in when David and his wife, got into an accident. Um, and the door um, and the door is pinned down by the weight of the car. So, and somehow this woman, was able to lift up the car. Um, she was able to lift up the car and, and get her son out of the car. And, um, there were several people who demonstrated extraordinary strength like this under extreme, emotional pressure and strain under the situation. So, and David and Elena, are trying to figure out, how and why these people, were able to tap into that strength, and David wasn't. So, so he's studying, so they're studying, trying to figure it out. And um and he is and he's frustrated because, obviously, they can't, they're searching and searching, and they still can't seem to figure it out. um so um um so David looks at a what the hell is it called? He he has like a piece of paper. He has like a piece of paper with like a graph on it that I think that marks gamma radiation, and he's looking at it, and um, he's he's looking at it, and um, he's looking at it and thinks that he found and he thinks, that he's onto something. He thinks, that he found the answer that he's been looking for. So um he goes into the excuse me, sorry, he goes into the lab where the gamma ray is, and takes a gamma injection. um and takes a gamma injection, um and um pushes it pushes the gamma ray up to 300,000. Well, actually, no, to what he thinks is 300,000, um, for 15 seconds. And then at first nothing happens. But he's at first, nothing happened. So, so he's leaving the lab. Um, he's leaving the lab, angry and frustrated that, that he can't, that he still can't, figure it out. Um, and he's driving home. It's raining, there's like this big, like thunderstorm outside. And the, and something in the middle of the road punctures his tire. So he gets out of the car, to change the tire, and he scrapes his hand on the I think on the pavement. And um and 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 he's like, and he cuts his hand on the pavement once, and then nothing happens. But then when he cuts it a second time, it's so bad, that he starts screaming. And then you see, the Hulk come out, for the first time. And um and he doesn't and he and then you see the Hulk come out, for the first time. Um and then when you and then it's morning. uh I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm not going to get into the whole, like smashy, because it's just, it's going to waste time. But um, so it's morning. He's standing in the woods. Um, he's standing in the woods. His shirt is torn. His clothes are a mess. Um, and he's kneeling by like a river, and he's watching himself, change back, um, from the Hulk to Banner, and he sees um, like what he's turned into, and he can't believe it. Like this is somebody who, yeah, basically, somebody who got more than they bargained for. Like like yes, he wanted to, to tap into that super normal, strength, that all humans have. But he didn't, but obviously, he didn't want this. And, um, so, um, so him and Elena are trying to figure out, um, him and Elena are trying to figure out, because at first, he doesn't quite understand, like how it happened, what triggered it. And it isn't, and it's not until later when, when Elena says to him, maybe, she goes, it's probably your anger that triggers it off. And he's like, well, that means it's uncontrollable. And then we find out, um, that one of the doctors, at the place that David and Elena work, um, had a Ben had put a piece of tape over by, um, why the numbers where the gamma ray is, that tells you, how much gamma you're using. He put a piece of tape there, trying to see, just how high, he could get it to go. Um, and Elena, so they're talking, and David and Elena goes, and she's, then Elena is telling him about this, and then and Ben go, and David goes, well, how high did Ben get it to go? And Elena goes, almost 2 million units. And David's like, I took a dose that high. And she's like, probably. So, so he doesn't, so he didn't even know, so David didn't even know at the time, just how much, he was using. He didn't know, um, he didn't realize at the time just how much, um, how much gamma he was taking into himself. Um, so, but yeah, and then he's also, so while you have the Hulk in the, excuse me, sorry. Um, so throughout the series, um, remember the first season is, obviously what started it all, but throughout the series, um, the um, the pilot movie ends with, um, the pilot movie. There's a character in this. There's a character in this series called Jack McGee, who is a reporter for a paper called the National Register, um, which is not a very popular paper in this, in this show. Pretty much the only stuff that they cover are murder, rape, horoscopes, UFOs, and Farrah Fawcett. So, um, so Jack McGee is, he's very nosy, he's very determined, um, he likes to stick his nose basically where it isn't wanted. Um, and um, he's trying to find out. Um, he At the end of the in the beginning, he's trying to get David Banner for an interview when he's doing, his research on, on how humans tap into, that supernormal strength. And and David Banner's like, yeah, no, 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 I'm not interested, blah blah blah. And um, so the first season, the pilot movie ends with, um, there's a fire at the lab, and Elena ends up dying in the fire, and Elena ends up dying in the fire, and then Um, Jack McGee, Prince's Story, um, basically saying that David Banner and Elena perished in the fire, because obviously, um, because McGee, um, towards the end of the towards the end of the pilot, McGee, still sticking his nose in Banner's business, and obviously, trying to get a story right. So um so David outside is outside, talking with McGee, and then there's that famous line that pretty much everybody knows, where David goes, "Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." So, and then at that point, the lab explodes, and David obviously ends up, running in, trying to save, Elena, and and then obviously comes out, like, as the Hulk. So um, so McGee ends up printing a story, um, thinking that both Elena and David Banner were killed in that fire. Um, in that fire that day. So Banner, um, you know, and died in that fire that day, and were both killed by the Hulk, which is obviously false. Um, which is obviously false, because the Hulk, obviously, in this show, he never killed anyone. Um, um, so with so David, at the end of this, begins a life on the run. Um, he begins a life on the run, um, trying to find, a cure for the Hulk. Um, so throughout the first season, he is caught in, um, he'll be, um, the thing about this is that, because he's on the run now, um, you know, by the end of the first, by the end of the first episode, he always, he can't stay in one place for too long. He has to keep moving, because Jack McGee is so obsessed with finding, with trying to find out, who the Hulk is, and um, trying to find out, like, who the Hulk is and where the Hulk is. Whenever the Hulk shows up, McGee is always there. He's always trying to find out. He's always trying to follow. Um, he's whenever there's a lead on the Hulk, like boom, like he's there, like he's following it. And um so um so being on the run, David obviously, he can't stay in one place for too long because obviously because McGee is looking for him, and obviously because he's the Hulk, and David is afraid. David is afraid that obviously he'll hurt someone. Um, but um, but yeah, no, he always he but yeah, no, each episode will usually deal with um David, like meeting, like either it'll either have him, like falling in love with someone or making a friend, and usually ending up, in situations, in extreme situations where, he ultimately, ends up turning into the Hulk. Um, but usually ending up in situations where he is, very much trying to help, these this person and or people who are um in need of help, you know who are in need of help or in need of aid, while at the same time obviously trying to avoid Jack McGee. um but yeah, no, this is, I mean, this is such a classic. um it's it's I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I still love it now. um it's such a classic show. I think it's a show that I think a lot of people grew up watching and loving. And it's still very much one of those things where even though it is dated by today's standards, it does remain a classic, and it is very much something that you can um that you can just kick back and just watch it today and just still still have a blast, and just still have a blast with even today. But um but yeah, no, it's um and the thing obviously about this show is that he um is that the Hulk, like in this series, like he never hits anybody. Like usually when he's he just usually like throws them around, or um he just usually like throws them around, or or whatever. Like there's this one moment where he'll take kind of like he doesn't like he doesn't leave like any lasting damage. Basically, he doesn't he'll do like what Spider-Man does. He'll just he'll leave them for the police, and let the police handle it. But which I know obviously isn't something that the Hulk would normally do. But but understand, this is the '70s. It's not, you couldn't, you couldn't, you couldn't get away with the Hulk, doing, you obviously couldn't get away with, the Hulk doing the type of things, um, that he did in, like, say, the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008. Um, you couldn't have him doing, those kinds of things during this time. It just, it obviously just, it wouldn't fly. Um, but yeah, no, this is, this is just, it's such a classic. It's such a fan favorite. Um, And and like I said before, I still love it, even to this day. If you guys haven't seen this, I very, very, very recommend. I very, very, very much recommend. I very, very much, excuse me, sorry, recommend this. Um, recommend watching this because it's an oldie, but it's a goodie, and um, it's very, very much something that you can, you know, that you can, fondly look back on and say, yeah, I remember this. I remember watching this as a kid, or I remember watching this, um, like when it first aired or whatever, and just yeah. So I'm just gonna say, if you haven't, if you've never seen it, watch it, because it's because again, despite the fact that it is dated by by today's standards, it is worth your time. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you watched it. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.